We've got some breaking news out of the NBA where James Harden is declining his player option and signing a new 2-year, $81.5 million deal with the Clippers. That's according to ESPN. He was set to earn just over $36 million next season on his old deal, but opted out for a longer one with a higher salary. Harden entering his third year in L.A. with the Clippers and was named to his 11th All-Star game last season, averaging a team-high 23 points, 9 helpers, and 6 boards per game. All right, the deadline came and went. Here we go with the James Harden news. John Gonzalez and Sam Quinn to break it on down. So, John, I'm going to give you first word here. Thoughts on this new 2-year deal?
Yeah, the question, Tommy, wasn't whether or not, excuse me, James Harden was going to stick around. It was whether or not he was going to pick up that player option or opt out and get a new deal. That's what he ended up doing. The question for us, and Sam and I were just discussing this, was whether or not that number would disqualify them from using the full mid-level exception. Sam's better on this than I am, but he'll be able to explain it. But it looks like they will be. And that's huge for team building, right? Because the Clippers last year, I think that they did more than a lot of people expected, certainly more than I expected. After Paul George left, you didn't have Kawhi Leonard for a big chunk of the year. James Harden was really good. That defense was really good. And they end up giving the Denver Nuggets all they can handle in that first round. So James Harden, you know, different stops vary. Your mileage may vary on James Harden, but he had a pretty good year last year, so the Clippers wanted him to stick around, and I think this works both ways.
Yeah, I think this is a good deal for both sides. I mean, for Harden, obviously, he gets the salary bump this year. The Clippers get the partial guarantee on the second year. Useful in case they need to move on, but the number to watch here is that first apron figure, right? Before this, if Harden had just picked up his player option, they were going to have around $20 million in wiggle room to improve the roster, use the full mid-level exception, make unbalanced trades, perhaps use the biannual exception. They dip into that flexibility a little bit because they do bump James Harden's salary. They're still going to have enough room to use that full mid-level if they want to. They could split it across multiple players. I think the things to watch for them moving forward in the offseason: backup point guard and backup center. They really struggled whenever James Harden went to the bench last year on offense. Kevin Porter Jr., Bogdan Bogdanovic, those guys didn't cut it. They've been linked to Ty Jerome. They've been linked to Chris Paul. And then behind Ivica Zubac, they haven't really had a reliable backup center, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them chase a big as well. I think they still have the flexibility to get both if they really want to. So they got Harden on a good number. It's not a long-term commitment. And their balance sheet now is relatively clean for that summer of 2027 when there are a lot of good free agent stars lined up. If they want to remake the team after that, after Harden and Kawhi Leonard expired, they'll be able to do that.
All right, so Sam, again, just to be very clear from what you and John are saying, they've had flexibility to now then be aggressive. Is that the take here?
Yeah, I would say so. Now, I'm not expecting them to go out and say trade for a star, right? I think they have the core of the team that they want, and I think they're thinking a little bit longer term, right? They only have Harden on a 2-year deal. That aligns his contract with Kawhi Leonard's. He obviously signed an extension during the 23-24 season. They now both expire in the summer of 2027. You want to be competitive in that time, right? You want to get better. You want to address those holes at backup point guard and backup center. They'll have the room to do that. But I would be surprised if they made a big swing where they say gave up multiple draft picks or they added somebody on a really expensive long-term deal. I think the timeline they're looking at right now is you have these 2 more years with Kawhi and with James Harden when they're still hopefully at the level they were last year, which was an all-star level. If you have that, you can shore up the edges. They pushed Denver to 7 games, and Denver pushed Oklahoma City to 7 games. So they're close enough that I think if they can just get the margins right, they could be pretty competitive next year.
Yeah, I'm the same here. I think it's tinkering on the margins. I mean, the backup point guard and the backup center really are the main focal points. Maybe they use the mid-level exception on one guy, but I would expect probably chop it up a little bit and get some of those backups with Chris Paul, somebody that has been super rumored to be interested in going back to LA, and that the Clippers that would seem to be a need for them. And then, you know, maybe somebody like Clint Capella as a backup big. I'm not a huge Clint Capella guy, but as a backup, that would be just fine for them. And really, Tommy, I mean, the Western Conference is absolutely loaded. So for the Clippers to just decide, okay, look, we have another year of James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. We'll see how this thing goes, and then we'll decide again the following season. Because, look, last year without Kawhi Leonard for much of the year, they still had a really good year, right? I mean, they end up as the 5 seed and they go to 7 games against the Denver Nuggets. That's about as good as you could hope for when you have James Harden running a show that's like a little bit offensively challenged, really hyper-focused on Ty Lue's defense, did a really good job at that end of the floor. So if you can get more out of Kawhi Leonard going forward and also, as Sam had mentioned, fill in some of the gaps around the edges, this Clippers team could be plucky again.
Aggressive within reason. All right, just to update with the takeaways here. And then finally here, remind us or at least give me projections of what we think a soon-to-be 36-year-old James Harden will be. John, obviously, he's still a bucket getter. Fantastic season here, but this new 2-year deal will get him, what, 36, 37 years old now. He's getting up there in age.
Yes, he is getting up there in age. I was out on James Harden last year. I will be the first to admit that I was one of the guys who said, look, I think James Harden has reached the end of the line here. And he had a good season. Now, the problem here, Tommy, is that good regular season James Harden often shows up. Just as inconsistent, where did he go when it really mattered in the postseason, James Harden frequently shows up, as it did at times last year, as he did in previous stops, certainly with the Philadelphia 76ers, the Houston Rockets before that. We'll put the Brooklyn Nets off to the side for a second. Look, James Harden is a very talented player. There's no doubt about it. But you're right. I mean, he's getting up there in age. But I just think, like, if you're the Clippers, this was a marriage of convenience when they brought him over from the Sixers. It worked out pretty well on the whole. Again, a little rough spots in the postseason. I just think, like, there was never a world where he probably wasn't coming back this year. So you roll the dice again, and you hope maybe he has a better postseason moving forward.
Yeah, James Harden has never exactly been known for his conditioning. Let's leave it at that. So I would be a little bit nervous about how he ages. I will say he is a player now, especially, that relies a lot more on strength than speed, right? His best trait on offense was always his ability to decelerate. So it doesn't matter quite as much how quick that first step is. He has other ways to beat you, but I would be a little bit concerned how he's going to look. But the Clippers baked that into this contract by giving him the partial guarantee on the second year. If they do need to get off of him early, they can. If they need to use him as a big expiring contract in a trade next offseason, they can. So all of those concerns are valid. I do think the Clippers have prepared for it, and I don't think they're going to say throw a bunch of first-round picks in and think, we have James Harden. We're like an immediate championship contender. We have to go all the way in. No, I think they're going to be measured about this. I think they understand that Harden is a risk, just like Kawhi Leonard is with his injury history. They're trying to win, but I don't think they're going to do it in a way that leaves them exposed if James Harden does experience age-related decline.
All right, on a day in L.A. where you had LeBron James go in, James Harden go out, but not without a deal. John Gonzalez and Sam Quinn here on HQ. Gentlemen, thank you. When we take a look at most career points without a title, Karl Malone, Carmelo Anthony, and James Harden. I know a lot of people on social media were hoping for a Rockets and KD reunion, but of course, as the fellas had talked about, not all that surprising, declining it and then getting a new deal to sort of help the team.